Hi, I'm Charlie Starr. The video you are about to watch is part of my free course, How to Read a Birth Chart. Signing up is easy. Simply subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell, and shoot me an email to the address in the description box below, letting me know you want to be enrolled. I will reply with a welcome email, including the syllabus and other free course materials. Then head on over to my channel page and find the How to Read a Birth Chart free course playlist. Hit play and follow the step-by-step instructions to become a true birth chart master. And now, back to this video. Hello friends, and welcome back for another episode. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the planet Mars. What does Mars mean in your chart? What is the essential energy of Mars? How do we understand what Mars is all about so we can use it in astrology? If you haven't already watched the video on Venus, Venus is essentially the polarizing energy on the opposite end of the spectrum of Mars. We already did Venus video, so I'll go ahead and link above right here for you. Go ahead and watch that and then come back and watch this video. So what is Mars all about? We're going to dive into the mythology of Mars to get some information, also the astronomy of Mars to get some additional information. Then we're going to talk more specifically about what Mars represents in the birth chart, and then we're going to give some examples, and finally we're going to talk about what signs rule Mars rules. Okay. In mythology, Mars is considered the son of Jupiter, and he becomes known as the god of war. Most people know of Mars as the god of war from mythology. This is accurate, but Mars is also more than this. Mars is also considered a healer and a protector, especially of the city of Rome, which he founded, being the father of Romulus and Remus. And amongst the Celtic tribes, he was considered a protector and a healer. Mars is considered the lifeblood, the power symbol, the drive of humanity, the aggressive passion of humanity. Mars is considered in astrology a fire planet. The ancient Babylonians called Mars Nergal, which was their god of fire and destruction. Mars's sacred animal is the wolf. Astronomically, Mars is also our neighbor, though it's further away from the sun than our planet Earth. And unlike Mercury and Venus, which can always be found within a particular orb to the sun, Mars is free in the astrological wheel to transit the entire wheel separate from the sun. What I mean by this is, for example, Venus is always going to be found within 48 degrees of the sun, so your Venus sign is always going to be 48 degrees or less away from your sun sign. It could potentially be the same sign as your sun sign or the neighboring sign, but that's just about it. It's not going to be too far away, whereas Mars, you could have a Mars on the opposite end of the sky than your sun sign. Astronomically, Mars is not that big of a planet. It's only bigger than Mercury, but it's smaller than our planet and it's smaller than Venus. It's a dry and dusty planet with a very red atmosphere due to its high iron content. Mars' association with the lifeblood and our survival instinct is most likely due to the fact that Mars in the sky gives off a bright red glow. The iron content is what makes Mars have such a red appearance. We do associate Mars with the lifeblood, and there is an incredibly high iron content on Mars, and iron is a very important nutrient for producing blood. So if somebody doesn't have enough iron, low iron content, this means that they're not producing enough blood, and they're going to get cold very easily. What does all of this mean in astrological terms? What does Mars really represent in your birth chart? When you think about the mythology as well as the astronomical facts, we can deduce that the meaning of Mars in the birth chart essentially makes Mars represent our vitality. This is our life force. This is our energy. This is our drive to live, our survival instinct. Mars being associated with the wolf animal talks about our instinctual self, our nature that is based upon survival. This energy is extremely goal-oriented. There's a drive with this energy to move towards a direction. If Venus is the one being chased, the one attracting, then Mars is the one that is going for it. Mars is the one that is rushing in a direction, that has their eye on the prize, and that anything in Mars's path is going to be bulldozed over. They are not the goal, but if they're in the way of the goal, they're going down. Where Mars is in your chart can indicate where you have a lot of energy, where you have passion and drive, what can set you on fire, and potentially an area of your life that you can have a lot of drive and purpose. If you're running out of energy, I would encourage you to look towards your Mars sign and see if you're really going for the types of things that your Mars is describing that you should go for. Because if you're working with your Mars sign, you're going to have a lot of energy. If you're not supporting your Mars sign, if you're not working with your Mars sign, then you may feel quite depleted because you're trying to put your energy in a place where your energy is not naturally going. How your energy works can depend on what sign your Mars is in. If you're in a mutable sign, your energy is naturally going in different directions pretty quickly. So learning to be adaptable and moving with that energy, having a couple different projects going on at the same time can be really helpful. If you have Mars in a fixed sign, as long as you're in the activity that makes your Mars happy, you're going to have good focus and good energy for that activity. If your Mars is in a cardinal sign, that's probably going to have an effect to where you need to have goals in order for you to be motivated to do something. So having a particular vision board, a particular agenda, a particular statistical, clearly defined, numerical, valued success point, like a very clearly defined success point for you to work towards. That's going to be more the thing that lights the fire under your ass to get you going. Another thing people say about the Mars placement is that it's going to describe how you express strong, passionate emotions such as anger or sexual aggression. So somebody who has Mars in the first house, for example, their Mars energy is going to be much more visible than particularly another planet, such as having Mars in the 8th house or Mars in the 12th house. This person is going to have a more private display of their strong emotions, whereas somebody whose Mars is, say, in the 1st house or maybe the 10th house, this is going to be something that people notice about this person. They're very fiery. You can see the fire in their eyes, the intent to express, the expression of how they're feeling or thinking about a situation. Their aggravation is going to come out much more, whether that's coming out with verbal disagreement or with just that you can kind of see it, that they're wearing their heart on their sleeve, right? These are like hot-blooded people. So I've seen Mars in Pisces have the effect where somebody who had their Mars in Pisces, they had a lot of energy to speak out for victims. Pisces can have to do with martyrdom, victimness, and the sort of like savior complex, needing a savior or being a savior. And have Mars in Pisces, this person was very motivated to act on behalf of people who had been wrongly oppressed. I've also seen Mars in Gemini manifest in a couple different ways. One person, they have Mars in Gemini in the 11th house, which has to do with friendships and groups. This person is energized by being around people, by social environment, and by belonging to a group. This is really where they have the most vitality. When they're at home alone, it seems like they're drained. So this person was extremely extroverted in this way, and I think that had a lot to do with their Mars being both in a social sign, which was Gemini, and also in the 11th house, which has to do with friendships and groups. Another person who had Mars in Gemini, they're also a social person, but their Gemini was in the 12th house, which is a much more private house. This is a house that does have to do with being alone. This person had a lot of anger issues that were not visible. Most people weren't aware of those things. So that was one manifestation of this. And then another manifestation of this was that this person also studied languages, and they were very, very interested in knowing different languages, which Gemini is the sign of language. And so throughout this person's life, they acquired a wide vocabulary in a variety of languages, which is a very Gemini way of expressing this desire to learn language, because it's sort of all over the place. It's like some of this and some of that, as opposed to like very focused on one particular language. Mars in Cancer, I've seen this in numerous charts. What I think a popular expression of Mars in Cancer is this person is very driven to pursue comfort. They're very driven to pursue people who exude a maternal quality or a maternal instinct. So they're definitely motivated by the need to feel safe, the need to feel secure, the need to feel taken care of, and the need to be comfortable. Mars in Taurus, I've seen in numerous charts. This has an effect on the anger, with the anger emotion being typically repressed because this is Venus's sign. And so there wasn't a huge amount of anger being expressed or being felt by this person, but then once they did tap into that anger and did find an outlet for it, there was a lot of rage. When we think of the bull being provoked in like a bull ring, then it's like it's this raging bull. Taurus is the sign of the bull, and Taurus is also a fixed sign, and Taurus rules the throat. So the expression that this would often, the form that this would often take was like verbally, the anger is coming out through a spewing of verbal onslaught. Mars in Virgo, the strong emotions need an outlet through the body. So if this person is not expressing their passion and their strong emotions through their body on a regular and healthy level, then this can lead to a lot of inflammation in the body, because Mars is the aggravating factor, the inflammatory factor. But this can also lead to a person acting out aggressively. So it's very important for this person to have some sort of physical outlet for their strong feelings. Mars in Aries, this can make a person very ambitious, very goal-oriented. It also can make somebody very competitive. Same with, say, Mars in Leo. This can be a little bit more of a competitive sign, but especially Mars in Aries. And this also makes a person prone to athleticism and a desire to have an athletic outlet for their expression. Because this is a fire planet in a fire sign, there's a lot of heat here. There's a lot of energy here, and it needs to burn. What are the signs that Mars rules? They're going to be the signs that are opposite the wheel of Venus. Venus is the harmony aspect, the agreeable aspect, the relationship aspect. Mars has really no interest in these things. Mars is just focused on the thing that Mars is driven to do. So this is kind of like two ends of a polarity here, and people that have important points, such as the lunar nodes on one of Venus's houses and one of Mars's houses, they're going to be struggling with this dynamic of their will versus balancing their will with other people's will. This making love or making war dynamic is going to be a polarizing point in that person's chart and in that person's life, where they're trying to balance these two necessary components to a human experience. So with that being said, we already learned that Venus's signs are Libra and Taurus, so Mars's signs are Aries and Scorpio. I think it's interesting that in Celtic mythology and lore, Mars is seen as a god of healing, and Mars's sign Scorpio is the sign of healing. So Scorpio is a water sign, but Mars is essentially the warrior, and Mars is in Scorpio is Mars that has been wounded, which I've talked about in other videos. And so this sign has to do with healing trauma. It's interesting because a lot of people don't think of Mars as a healing quality. We think of healing more as Venus's territory, and healing is definitely one of Venus's things, but Venus is going to do it in a soothing manner, in a cooling sort of manner, whereas like Mars is essentially the element that says we're going to burn your wound to prevent infection. This is going to hurt. This is going to be painful, but it's going to facilitate new growth. It's going to facilitate prevention of infection, prevention of death. This is going, in fact, going to facilitate this. Mars in a lot of people's charts I've seen, because I work in surgery, I've seen Mars in a lot of people's charts symbolized in an earth sign or in a healing sign like Scorpio or Pisces. And this was also a planet that symbolized something that that person did for work, which has to do with surgery is a sort of trauma that we're doing for the body that actually is healing the person. And that's the kind of healing that Mars does. So that is the kind of healing energy that Mars brings to Scorpio. Mars also reminds us of the traumas that we've gone through, and Mars is also the fire that rises from the ashes, the essential will that burns through any trauma, any crap, anything that we have been through. This is the energy that burns up our karma. If you've ever heard of people talking about burning up karma, this is the drive and the will that pulls us through the difficult times, that burns away the things that we no longer need. Scorpio has to do with setting on fire the things that no longer serve us. So this can look so many different ways, but this kind of gives you an idea of the Mars and Scorpio energy. When we have Mars as the ruler of Aries, which is Aries' first sign, this is really a very, very pure Mars energy. It's kind of like when we take a look at Mercury's energy in Gemini, their energies are so similar. It's like a very, very clear expression of Mars because Mars is in a fire sign, and so it's very, very pure. Same with Mercury and Gemini. Mercury is an air planet and Gemini is the air sign, so the expression is very, very pure. With Mars and Aries, we have the warrior, we have the will, we have the youth, we have the optimism, we have the aggression, we have the ambition, right? So Mars as the ruler of Aries, Aries is the seed, the virility. Mars is often considered a masculine component. And this has to do with the lifeblood, with the seed, right? This has to do with the spark. This Aries as the first in the wheel, as the first sign of spring, as a cardinal spring, it is ambitious, it is goal-oriented, it is the pure will to live, it is a survival instinct. So Mars in Aries has a very, like I said, pure expression. There's so much more that I could say about Mars. Of course, we haven't even talked about Mars in aspect to different planets, and we haven't even gone through Mars through the houses or through all of the signs. But that is just to give you a little bit of an overview, a little bit of a flavor, a little bit of a taste for what Mars is like in the birth chart. If you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time.